Have you ever felt overwhelmed by the chaos of modern life, wondering how to maintain your composure when everything seems to be falling apart? Do you sometimes find yourself lying awake at night, your mind racing with anxious thoughts about things completely outside your control? Have you noticed that the happiest and most successful people often seem to possess an unusual ability to stay calm and focused, regardless of what's happening around them? These are the questions that led ancient philosophers to develop one of history's most powerful systems for maintaining inner peace. A philosophy that continues to transform lives today, Stoicism. In this video, we'll explore 13 profound lessons from Stoic philosophy that will help you develop unshakable calm in a world that seems designed to shatter your peace. These lessons aren't abstract theories, but practical tools that have been tested across centuries by everyone from Roman emperors to modern CEOs. These are the exact same principles that helped Marcus Aurelius rule an empire during times of plague and war, that guided Seneca through political exile, and that continue to help millions find tranquility in our chaotic modern world. Let's begin our journey into Stoic wisdom. Lesson number 1, focus on what you can control. At the heart of Stoic philosophy lies a fundamental distinction, first articulated by the Greek philosopher Epictetus: the dichotomy of control. This principle invites us to recognize a profound truth. Some things are within our control, while others remain forever beyond our influence. Epictetus, born a slave who later gained his freedom, understood the liberating power of focusing exclusively on what we can control. He wrote, "Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens." Consider your morning commute. When traffic grinds to a halt, you have two options. You can fume with rage, honking your horn and raising your blood pressure, or you can accept the situation and focus on what remains in your control, perhaps using the time to listen to an audiobook or practice mindfulness. The Stoics used the metaphor of an archer to illustrate this principle. As an archer, you have complete control over your aim, your stance, and the care with which you release the arrow. But once the arrow leaves your bow, external factors like wind currents take over. The skilled archer, like the skilled Stoic, focuses entirely on executing the perfect shot, then accepts whatever outcome follows with equanimity. This principle applies to virtually every area of our lives. You cannot control whether your boss promotes you, but you can control the quality of your work. You cannot control whether someone loves you, but you can control how you express love toward others. You cannot control the weather, but you can control your preparation and response to it. By habitually directing our attention toward what we can control, we reclaim our power over our inner experience. We free ourselves from the exhausting cycle of trying to manage the unmanageable. This is the first step toward Stoic tranquility, understanding that true freedom comes not from controlling the external world, but from mastering our internal responses to it. Lesson number 2, practice radical acceptance. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome and devoted Stoic, wrote in his journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This insight leads us to our second Stoic lesson, the power of acceptance. Life presents us with countless situations we cannot change. People will disappoint us, plans will fail, tragedy will strike. The Stoics recognize that resisting these unchangeable realities only multiplies our suffering. When we refuse to accept what is, we create an additional layer of pain, the pain of resistance. Imagine you're caught in a sudden downpour without an umbrella. You can curse the rain, hunch your shoulders, and make yourself miserable, or you can accept the reality of getting wet and perhaps even find some childlike joy in the experience. The rain falls either way. Your suffering is optional. This doesn't mean passive resignation. Stoic acceptance is not about giving up, but about seeing reality clearly so we can respond effectively. Before we can change any situation, we must first accept it as it is. As Epictetus advised, don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it would, but rather wish that everything happens as it actually will. Then your life will flow well. When we practice radical acceptance, we release the tension of resistance. We stop wasting energy fighting against reality and instead direct that energy toward constructive action within the realm of what can be changed. This is the paradoxical strength of acceptance. By surrendering our demand that reality be different, we gain the clarity and energy to change what can be changed. The next time you face a difficult situation, try saying to yourself, "This is happening. I may not like it, but I can accept it." Notice the immediate shift in your internal state as you release the burden of resistance. Lesson number 3. Cultivate present moment awareness. Seneca, the Roman statesman and philosopher, observed that the greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today. In this insight, we find our third Stoic lesson, the importance of mindfulness, or present moment awareness. While the term mindfulness has become popular in recent years, the Stoics were practicing this mental discipline over 2,000 years ago. They understood that much of our suffering comes from dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, rather than attending fully to the present moment. Think about the last time you felt anxious. Were you fully engaged with what was happening right in front of you? Or was your mind spinning stories about what might happen tomorrow, next week, or next year? Anxiety lives in the imagined future, rarely in the actual present. The Stoics developed practical exercises for cultivating present moment awareness. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." This wasn't just philosophical advice, but a practical discipline. By repeatedly bringing our attention back to the present moment, we train our minds to dwell where our power actually resides, in the now. A simple practice is to periodically ask yourself, what is actually happening right now? Not what you think about what's happening, not what you fear might happen next, but simply what is occurring in this moment. Is your breathing deep or shallow? What sounds can you hear? What sensations are present in your body? This practice of returning to the present moment serves as an anchor during emotional storms. When you feel overwhelmed, bring your attention to your breath, to the feeling of your feet on the ground, to the sounds around you. This simple shift in attention can break the spiral of rumination and restore a sense of calm. By cultivating present moment awareness, we follow Seneca's advice to hold every hour in your grasp. We discover that tranquility is not found in solving all of life's problems, but in fully inhabiting each moment as it unfolds. Lesson number 4. Develop adversity as strength. Fire tests gold. Suffering tests brave men, wrote Seneca, capturing the Stoic perspective on adversity. Our fourth lesson reveals how Stoics viewed challenges not as misfortunes to be avoided, but as opportunities for growth and character development. The Stoics used a powerful metaphor to illustrate this point. Just as a muscle grows stronger when subjected to resistance, our character develops strength when faced with difficulties. Without challenges, we remain untested and undeveloped. Epictetus, who experienced slavery, disability, and exile, taught that difficulty reveals our true character. Circumstances don't make the man, they only reveal him to himself, he observed. Through this lens, adversity becomes not just something to endure, but something to welcome as a teacher. Consider a recent challenge you faced. Perhaps it was a professional setback, a health issue, or a relationship difficulty. While it may have been painful, ask yourself, what strength did this difficulty help you develop? What did you learn about yourself that you might never have discovered in easier times? The Stoic practice of voluntary discomfort builds on this principle. By intentionally subjecting ourselves to small hardships like taking cold showers, fasting for a day, or sleeping on a hard floor, we build resilience that serves us when involuntary difficulties arise. As Seneca advised, set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, "Is this the condition that I feared?" This doesn't mean seeking out suffering for its own sake. Rather, it means approaching inevitable challenges with a growth mindset, asking, "What can I learn from this?" instead of, "Why is this happening to me?" By reframing adversity as a training ground for virtue and strength, we transform our relationship with life's difficulties. We develop resilience not by avoiding challenges, but by engaging with them purposefully, extracting their lessons, and growing stronger through the experience. Lesson number 5. Master your responses. Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. Taught Epictetus, highlighting our 5th Stoic lesson, the power to choose our responses to external events. Between stimulus and response lies a space, and in that space resides our freedom and power. While we cannot control what happens to us, we maintain complete sovereignty over how we respond. This distinction is fundamental to Stoic practice. Imagine someone cuts you off in traffic. The event itself is neutral. Your interpretation, "This person disrespected me," creates anger. But you could equally interpret it as, "This person may be rushing to an emergency," generating compassion instead. The event remains unchanged, but your response, and therefore your emotional experience, is entirely different. The Stoics develop practices to expand the space between stimulus and response. One powerful technique is the pause. When facing a triggering situation, take a deliberate pause before responding. During this pause, ask yourself, "Is this within my control? What virtue does this situation call for? What would the wise person do?" Epictetus advised his students to practice this pause, especially during provocations. Remember that it is not he who reviles you or strikes you, who insults you, but it is your opinion about these things as being insulting. When, therefore, someone provokes you, be aware that it is your own opinion that provokes you. By mastering our responses, we free ourselves from the tyranny of automatic reactions. We become less like weather vanes, swinging with every shift in external circumstances, and more like lighthouses, steady and unmoved by the storms that rage around us. This practice requires vigilance and discipline. It means catching ourselves in the act of reacting and redirecting our attention to the space of choice. With practice, this space expands, giving us greater freedom to respond with wisdom rather than react from habit. The mastery of our responses is perhaps the most practical application of Stoic philosophy in daily life. Each time we choose a thoughtful response over an automatic reaction, we strengthen our inner freedom and move closer to the Stoic ideal of unshackable tranquility. Lesson number 6. Practice negative visualization. "He robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand," wrote Seneca, introducing us to our 6th Stoic lesson, the practice of negative visualization, or what the Stoics called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. This practice involves deliberately imagining difficult scenarios that might befall us, not to induce anxiety, but to diminish fear and cultivate gratitude. By regularly contemplating potential losses, we prepare ourselves mentally for difficulties and deepen our appreciation for what we currently have. Imagine briefly what it would be like to lose your home, your job, your health, or a loved one. While this may seem morbid at first, the Stoics found that this practice serves several powerful functions. First, it reduces the shock of actual misfortune. When we've mentally rehearsed potential difficulties, we respond more calmly when real challenges arise. As Seneca observed, what is quite unlooked for is more crushing in its effect, and unexpectedness adds to the weight of a disaster. Second, it generates profound gratitude. After imagining life without your loved ones, returning to the reality of their presence creates a renewed appreciation. As Marcus Aurelius advised, do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good. Third, it builds resilience by familiarizing us with our fears. The Stoics understood that what we resist persists, but what we face and embrace loses its power over us. By regularly contemplating our fears, we rob them of their ability to paralyze us. To practice negative visualization, set aside a few minutes each day to calmly contemplate potential losses or difficulties. Then, return your attention to your present circumstances with renewed gratitude and perspective. This practice doesn't create anxiety, as some might fear, but actually reduces it by shrinking the gap between expectation and reality. By regularly practicing negative visualization, we follow Epictetus's advice to keep before your eyes day by day death and exile, and all things that seem terrible, but most of all death, and you will never have any abject thought, nor will you crave anything beyond measure. Lesson number 7, simplify your desires. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants, taught Epictetus, introducing our 7th Stoic lesson, the wisdom of simplifying our desires. The Stoics recognized a fundamental truth about human psychology: the more we want, the less satisfied we become. Desire creates a gap between our current state and an imagined future state, and this gap generates discontent. By cultivating simpler desires, we narrow this gap and increase our capacity for contentment. Seneca, who despite his enormous wealth lived periodically like a poor man, observed, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more who is poor." This insight reveals that poverty is more a state of mind than a financial condition. Consider your own desires. How many of them, if fulfilled, would genuinely increase your long-term happiness? How many are based on social comparison or fleeting impulses? The Stoics would have us examine our desires carefully, distinguishing between natural, necessary desires like those for food, shelter, and meaningful relationships, and artificial, unnecessary desires created by advertising, social media, and status anxiety. This doesn't mean embracing extreme asceticism or denying yourself life's pleasures. Rather, it means approaching desires mindfully, asking whether they align with your deeper values and contribute to genuine flourishing. As Seneca advised, the man who rises above the material things of life knows happiness that is not subject to fortune's influence. A practical Stoic exercise is to periodically fast from comforts and luxuries. Go a day without social media, sugar, or other common indulgences. Notice how quickly the craving subsides when not reinforced. This practice reveals the constructed nature of many desires and weakens their hold over us. By simplifying our desires, we create space for contentment to emerge naturally. We discover that happiness depends less on acquiring what we want than on wanting what we already have. In the words of Epictetus, "He is rich who is content with the least, for contentment is the wealth of nature." Lesson number 8, cultivate the 4 cardinal virtues. At the heart of Stoic philosophy lie the 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Our 8th lesson explores how cultivating these virtues creates a foundation for lasting tranquility and moral excellence. For the Stoics, virtue was not just one good among many, but the only true good, sufficient in itself for happiness. Everything else, including health, wealth, and reputation, was classified as a preferred indifferent, desirable but not essential for well-being. Wisdom, the first virtue, involves seeing reality clearly and making good judgments. It means distinguishing between what we can and cannot control, recognizing our cognitive biases, and making decisions based on reason rather than impulse. As Marcus Aurelius advised, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Courage, the second virtue, means acting according to wisdom even when doing so is difficult or frightening. It involves facing challenges directly rather than avoiding them and standing firm in our principles when under pressure. Seneca observed that sometimes even to live is an act of courage. Justice, the third virtue, concerns our relationships with others. It means treating people fairly, honoring our commitments, and contributing to the common good. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to be just and good and kind and faithful, modest and magnanimous, recognizing that virtue is expressed primarily through our treatment of others. Temperance, the fourth virtue, involves moderation and self-control. It means maintaining balance in our desires, emotions and actions, avoiding excess in all forms. Epictetus taught that no man is free who is not master of himself, highlighting temperance as essential to inner freedom. These virtues are not separate qualities but aspects of a unified character. They support and reinforce one another. Wisdom without courage remains theoretical. Courage without wisdom becomes recklessness. Justice without temperance can become fanaticism. By orienting our lives around these virtues, we align ourselves with what the Stoics considered our nature as rational, social beings. We create a character that remains steady regardless of external circumstances, finding fulfillment not in fleeting pleasures or possessions, but in the enduring satisfaction of living according to our highest nature. To practice this lesson, ask yourself each morning, how can I embody wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance today? Then, each evening, review your day through the lens of these virtues, celebrating your successes and learning from your shortcomings. Lesson number 9, remember your mortality. Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day. Wrote Seneca, introducing our 9th Stoic lesson, the contemplation of mortality. The Stoics practiced what they called memento mori, remembering that you will die. Far from being morbid, this practice was intended to sharpen our appreciation for life and clarify our priorities. By keeping death in mind, we paradoxically learn to live more fully. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This perspective strips away the trivial concerns that often consume our attention and focuses us on what truly matters. Imagine if you knew you had only 1 year to live. How would your priorities change? What grudges would you drop? What risks would you take? What would you stop postponing? The Stoic contemplation of mortality invites us to live each day with this heightened awareness. This practice also diminishes fear. By familiarizing ourselves with the inevitability of death, we reduce its power to terrify us. As Epictetus taught, "I cannot escape death, but at least I can escape the fear of it." The Stoics also used mortality to cultivate perspective. Marcus Aurelius recommended contemplating the deaths of historical figures, noting how even the most powerful and famous eventually become mere names, if remembered at all. This cosmic perspective helps us avoid taking ourselves too seriously. A simple way to practice this lesson is to ask yourself each morning, if this were my last day, how would I want to live it? This doesn't mean abandoning responsibilities for hedonistic pleasure, but rather bringing full presence and meaning to whatever you do, treating each moment as precious rather than disposable. By remembering our mortality, we follow Seneca's advice to count each day as a separate life. We learn to invest our limited time in what truly matters, shedding the unnecessary and embracing the essential. Lesson number 10. Adopt a cosmic perspective. Survey the circling stars as though yourself were in mid-course with them, wrote Marcus Aurelius, introducing our 10th Stoic lesson, the cultivation of a cosmic perspective. The Stoics regularly practiced zooming out from their immediate concerns to contemplate the vastness of the cosmos and the sweep of human history. This shift in perspective immediately shrinks our troubles to their proper size and connects us to something larger than ourselves. When feeling overwhelmed by a problem, try this Stoic practice. Imagine first your immediate surroundings, then your neighborhood, then your city, your country, the earth, the solar system, and finally the incomprehensible vastness of the cosmos. From this perspective, how significant is the issue troubling you? Marcus Aurelius regularly reminded himself of his tiny place in the cosmic scheme, writing, "Think of the whole of existence, of which you are the tiniest part, and the whole span of time, of which yours is a brief and momentary fraction." This practice isn't meant to diminish the importance of our lives or actions, but to liberate us from the tyranny of petty concerns. When we view our lives from a cosmic perspective, we naturally focus on what truly matters, dropping the trivial worries that often consume our attention. The cosmic perspective also reminds us of our connection to the whole. The Stoics saw the universe as an interconnected, rational system in which each part, including each human being, has its role to play. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Frequently consider the connection of all things in the universe, recognizing that understanding our place in the larger whole gives meaning to our individual lives." By regularly adopting a cosmic perspective, we cultivate what the Stoics called sympathia, a feeling of affinity with the whole of humanity and indeed with the cosmos itself. This expanded sense of identity frees us from the prison of excessive self-concern and connects us to something enduring and vast. The next time you feel stressed or overwhelmed, take a moment to look at the night sky or contemplate the age of the mountains or the ocean. Let this vastness remind you of your place in the grand scheme, not to make you feel insignificant, but to liberate you from the tyranny of momentary concerns. Lesson number 11. Practice daily reflection. Each night before going to sleep, we must ask ourselves, what weakness did I overcome today? What virtue did I acquire? So taught Seneca, introducing our 11th Stoic lesson, the practice of daily reflection. The Stoics were pioneers of what we now call mindfulness and self-awareness. They recognized that philosophical principles remain merely theoretical unless integrated into daily life through regular reflection and practical application. Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius all emphasized the importance of examining our thoughts and actions each day, celebrating our progress and learning from our mistakes. This practice creates a feedback loop that accelerates growth and deepens self-knowledge. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, perhaps the most famous Stoic text, was not written for publication but as a personal journal of reflections. Each night, the emperor would review his day, considering where he had lived according to Stoic principles and where he had fallen short. To practice daily reflection, set aside time each evening to review your day. Consider questions like, did I maintain equanimity in challenging situations? Did I distinguish between what I can and cannot control? Did I act with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance? Where did I succeed and where did I fall short? This practice isn't about harsh self-judgment, but about honest assessment and continuous improvement. As Epictetus taught, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid with regard to external things. Morning reflection complements evening review. Many Stoics began their day by setting intentions and preparing mentally for potential challenges. Seneca advised, "The spirit ought to be brought up in such a way that it shall have no curves, no bent corners, no angles." By bookending our days with reflection, we create a structure that supports continuous growth. We transform philosophy from an abstract study into a lived practice, gradually bringing our actions into alignment with our highest values. This practice also builds metacognition, the ability to observe our own thinking. As we develop this skill, we become less identified with our thoughts and emotions, creating space for wise response rather than automatic reaction. Lesson number 12, cultivate gratitude. "He who gave thee life gave thee all things with it," wrote Marcus Aurelius, introducing our 12th Stoic lesson, the practice of gratitude. While modern research has only recently confirmed the psychological benefits of gratitude, the Stoics intuitively understood its power. They recognized that focusing on what we have rather than what we lack creates a profound shift in our experience of life. Epictetus, who spent much of his life as a crippled slave before gaining his freedom and becoming a renowned teacher, particularly emphasized gratitude. He taught, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." The Stoics practiced gratitude not just for obvious blessings, but even for challenges and difficulties, seeing them as opportunities for growth. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be satisfied with success in even the smallest matter, and think that even such a result is no trifle." A powerful Stoic gratitude practice involves contemplating the gift of ordinary experiences we take for granted. Imagine temporarily losing your ability to see, to walk, to speak, to hear, or to embrace those you love. Then, return to the reality of having these abilities, experiencing them fresh with genuine appreciation. Seneca advised regularly reflecting on the impermanence of all we have, not to create anxiety, but to deepen gratitude. "Nothing, to my way of thinking, is a better proof of a well-ordered mind than a man's ability to stop just where he is and pass some time in his own company," he wrote, suggesting that contentment with what we have is the mark of true wisdom. Gratitude also creates resilience in difficult times. By training ourselves to find value and meaning even in small pleasures, we develop the capacity to maintain inner stability regardless of external circumstances. To practice Stoic gratitude, begin each day by identifying 3 specific things you're grateful for. Include not just obvious blessings, but also challenges that have helped you grow, difficulties you've overcome, and even mundane experiences like a warm shower or a comfortable bed. By cultivating gratitude, we follow Epictetus's counsel to make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. We train ourselves to focus on abundance rather than scarcity, creating a foundation for lasting contentment. Lesson number 13. Take the view from above. How beautifully Plato put it, "Whenever you want to talk about people, it's best to take a bird's eye view and see everything all at once," wrote Marcus Aurelius, introducing our final Stoic lesson, the practice of taking the view from above. This powerful mental exercise involves imaginatively stepping outside your immediate situation to view it from a higher, more objective perspective. By mentally elevating ourselves above our circumstances, we gain clarity, perspective, and emotional distance. When faced with a challenging situation, the Stoics would imagine viewing it from far above, as if looking down from a mountain or even from the stars. From this heightened vantage point, most of our troubles appear smaller and less overwhelming. This practice also helps us see connections and patterns that aren't visible when we're immersed in a situation. Just as a pilot sees the entire landscape rather than just the road ahead, the view from above reveals the broader context of our challenges and opportunities. Marcus Aurelius regularly practiced this mental exercise, writing, Let your eyes run through the whole course of life and survey the universality of time and of substance. And consider that all individual things are as a grain of sand compared to substance, and as a twist of the screw compared to time. To practice taking the view from above, close your eyes and imagine floating upward, watching yourself and your situation from increasingly greater heights. Notice how your perspective shifts as you gain altitude. What seems less important? What new patterns or possibilities become visible? This practice isn't about detachment or disconnection, but about gaining a more balanced, less emotionally reactive perspective. After taking the view from above, we return to our situation with fresh eyes, often seeing solutions or opportunities that weren't apparent when we were immersed in the problem. By regularly practicing the view from above, we cultivate what the Stoics called the mind of Zeus, the ability to see situations as they truly are, free from the distortions of our immediate emotional reactions and limited perspectives. In our journey through these 13 Stoic lessons, we've explored ancient wisdom that remains remarkably relevant to our modern lives. From focusing on what we can control to taking the view from above, these practices offer a comprehensive approach to maintaining calm and fostering inner strength in our chaotic world. The beauty of Stoicism lies not in its theoretical framework, impressive as that is, but in its practical application. These aren't just ideas to contemplate, but practices to embody. Each lesson offers concrete tools for navigating life's challenges with grace and wisdom. As Epictetus reminded his students, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. The true test of these Stoic lessons is not how well you understand them intellectually, but how effectively you apply them in your daily life. Begin by selecting one or two practices that resonate most strongly with you. Integrate them into your daily routine, perhaps through morning reflection or evening review. With consistent practice, these Stoic principles will become not just techniques you use, but integral aspects of your character. Remember that Stoicism is not about suppressing emotions or denying difficulties, but about responding to life's challenges with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. It's about building an inner citadel that remains unshaken by external storms. In a world that often seems designed to shatter our peace, these ancient practices offer a path to enduring tranquility. They remind us that true happiness doesn't depend on external circumstances, but on our inner relationship to those circumstances. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." May these Stoic lessons guide you toward that inner freedom and peace.